What's up, Big Blue Nation? Alex Frank here, covering the Kentucky Wildcats for CLNS Media, and this is the Scratch Podcast, powered by CLNS Media, covering all things Kentucky Wildcats basketball and Kentucky Wildcats football. We got a great show for you today on this Thursday, February 13th, 2025, just one day away from Valentine's Day. And man, I am loving what I'm seeing from the Kentucky Wildcats on the hardwood. 75-64, number 15 Kentucky gets it done over number 5 Tennessee on Tuesday night to run their record to 17-7 overall, 6-5 in the SEC. Second straight win for Kentucky, and this one took everything. It took guts, it took toughness, it took grit, it took resilience. For the second time in 2 weeks, Kentucky beat Tennessee without one of their top three scorers. And for the last 840 of this game, they beat Tennessee without two of their top three scorers. Lamont Butler gets hurt with 840 to go. Tennessee turns a 54-49 deficit into a 58-55 lead. And you're thinking, okay, Tennessee may run away with this. Does Kentucky have enough depth? Does Kentucky have the horses, no pun intended, to overcome Tennessee once again, to overcome their shorthandedness? They did. Ansley Almanor, Kobe Brea, Trent Noah, Amari Williams, Otega Owe. It doesn't matter who's available. Who's available is enough. Whoever is available has proven to be enough this season. How about the Bluegrass Freshman combo, Travis Perry and Trent Noah, on Tuesday night, combining for almost 20 points in this game. 19 combined points for the two freshmen from Kentucky. For the two freshmen, Travis Perry and Trent Noah, two Kentucky natives, two Kentuckians, and they both played substantially significant minutes, right? We look at the box score in this game. We look at the box score from this game. Part of it is a carbon copy from the last game against Tennessee. But in this game, Trent Noah scores 11. Travis Perry scores 8. Heck, Brandon Garrison scores 5 points off the bench. 3 of them on a 3-point shot. Huge 3. Andrew Carr scores 2 points. He's not 100%, but he's gutting it out. He played 19 minutes on Tuesday night. Kobe Brea with 11. Lamont Butler with 6 points, but it was 3 rebounds. It was 4 assists. It was 3 steals. How about his steal to start the game? Pickpocketing Zakai Ziegler, the best ball handler in the SEC. And Lamont Butler pickpockets him, steals, scores at the other end, and Kentucky's off and running. They get out to a 6-0 lead. Otega Owe with 13 points, 6 rebounds. Also had 2 blocks. He had a block shot on Chaz Lanier late in the first half, and he was giving him the business. Owe was giving Lanier a piece of his mind as they were going back down the floor. I loved it. I mean, it was like LeBron James trash-talking Steph Curry in the 2016 NBA Finals. And so, Owe had a huge game tie for the team lead in points. Amari Williams had 6 points, 4 rebounds, did have 3 turnovers, but he had a huge and one with about 4 minutes to go to put Kentucky up 63-60. And then Ansley Almanor tied for the team lead in scoring with 13 points. So, Ansley Almanor, who's like your 7th leading scorer, he's your 7th leading scorer, and he ties the leading scorer on this team, which is Owe, with 13 points. 13 points each for Ansley Almanor and Otega Owe. And Almanor hits 2 threes. And that goes into addition to the 3-pointers that he made against Tennessee the first time around. He made 4 threes against Tennessee in Knoxville. So in 2 games against the Volunteers. And keep in mind, Ansley Almanor played in the CAA last year at Fairleigh Dickinson. And he's making the jump from the CAA, which is a good conference, don't get me wrong. He's making the jump from the CAA to the SEC. And my goodness, has he been effective. Mark Pope has said that Ansley Almanor was going to win Kentucky some games this season. And he admitted Tuesday he didn't think it was going to be this many. I mean, the 2 games against Tennessee this season, Ansley Almanor has been as big of a reason why they've won as any player. As big of a reason why as any player. As big of a reason as Jaxson Robinson in the first game and Otega Owe in this game, or Kobe Brea, who made 3 3-pointers in this game. Ansley Almanor, and I said this going into Tuesday night, I believed Ansley Almanor was going to have a big game. I believed that he was going to bounce back after a subpar previous 3 games. And boy, did he do just that. But it wasn't any one of his threes that was the biggest play in the game. So let's go to the second half. I mean, there was a lot to it in the second half because Tennessee came out and they were hitting shots. I mean, they were making shots. So we look at the second half. Right, Kentucky goes up at one point 54-49. Lamont Butler with Kentucky up 50-47. He gets a steal, and then he hits Otega Owe on the fast break, and Owe dunks it in. It's now 52-47. Lanier gets a 2-point jumper outside the paint. It's now a 3-point game. Butler makes a layup down to 4. Milicic hits a 3 for Tennessee. Igor Milicic Jr. He was really good in the 2 games against Kentucky this year, in the regular season for Tennessee. He was scary good. So he makes a 3-pointer. Now it's 54-42. Butler misses a 3. Milicic gets the rebound. Then Butler gets hurt going for a loose ball. Let me stop right there. Because Lamont Butler going for a steal on a loose ball, that's something that I think all Kentucky fans should admire, right? It sucks that he got hurt, right? It sucks. Mark Pope said he said no one deserves to be out on the court more than Lamont Butler. Lamont Butler has come to embody everything that this Kentucky team is about. Toughness, grit, physicality, resilience, playing for the name on the front of the jersey. That's what Lamont Butler's doing. That's who Lamont Butler is. Lamont Butler is playing for the name on the front of his jersey. And he embodies that Kentucky should be playing that way. And look, Kentucky's always had a national standard of excellence. But Mark Pope has embraced that because he played at Kentucky. He understands what this is about. Community, working together, team, being a part of something greater than yourself. And that is something, ever since I went to Knoxville for that game 2 weeks ago against the Vols, that's something I have come to really understand what this Kentucky team is about. And Lamont Butler was the epitome of that. Be one thing if he gets hurt, if he, injures his shoulder on a shot attempt. Yeah, I mean, that would not be good. That happened. That could have happened. Be one thing if he runs into a player. He dove for a loose ball. He sacrificed his body, himself, for a loose ball. I can live with that. At any point, if a player does that, I can live with it. Lamont Butler did just that. It sucks that he got hurt on it. Hopefully, he's going to be back at some point. We'll get to that here coming up in just a few minutes. So Butler goes out. Now you're really starting to panic because your best on-ball defender is not in there. So now you're relying on guys like Travis Perry and Trent Noah and Amari Williams and Ansley Almanor. You're down 2 of your top 3 scorers. Thank goodness you're not down your top scorer in Otega Owe. He's going to have to maybe take on a larger role now that he doesn't have his other top 2 of your other 2 of your top 3 scorers in Robinson and Butler. Okay. So naturally, Tennessee takes the lead. Cade Phillips, who, by the way, for Tennessee came into the game Tuesday night at 51.2% for the line. Of course, he makes both free throws. Tie game, 8:20 to go. Media timeout with 7:56 to play. Jordan Gainey, Otega Owe is the free throw line. He makes 1 out of 2. Okay. Tennessee then takes the lead. Second chance jumper from Jordan Gainey. Owe misses a jumper in the paint. Then Tennessee goes down, Tennessee misses a jumper. Zakai Ziegler misses a jumper. Brea gets the rebound. Garrison misses a layup. Tennessee gets the rebound. They go back down the floor. Zakai Ziegler on the fast break makes a layup. It's now a 3-point game. And now you're really starting to be nervous. Brea draws a foul with 6:13 to go. They substitute in. Maury Williams comes in. Trent Noah comes in. And then with 5:59 to go, Ansley Almanor against Chaz Lanier. This is Tennessee's leading scorer. He may be SEC Player of the Year at the end of the regular season. Almanor, if I remember this correctly, Almanor is in the left corner on Kentucky's side of the basket. And instead of taking a corner three, and he's a great corner three shooter, right? If he's shooting a corner three, I'm confident it's going in, or it's going to be a good miss if there's a such thing as that, which I think there is. So Almanor, instead of taking the corner three, comes back to the paint, comes back to the middle, goes right at Chaz Lanier. So it is a mismatch. It's a forward against a guard. And Almanor scores an and one with 5:59 to go. I was talking with a friend of mine who lives in Nicholasville. And we both said, man, that was just a gutsy play by Almanor. And he even said after the game, sometimes you just got to get creative. In that situation, he knew Kentucky needed a bucket. Tennessee was on a 9-1 run. Butler had exited the game. They were already without Jaxson Robinson. Kentucky needed a bucket. When Almanor makes that layup, I felt like, hey, Kentucky's going to win this game. I don't care what it took. Kentucky was going to win the basketball game. Because I have seen this team be so resilient all season. I saw a team down 16 at halftime against Gonzaga in a game where Kerr Carissa breaks his foot and still rushes down to the other end of the court to contest a layup by Gonzaga. And in a 1-point game that Kentucky won in overtime, that was a huge play in the game. Lamont Butler was already out. And Kentucky, without Kerr Carissa and Lamont Butler, found a way to overcome a 16-point deficit against the number 17 at the time in the country in Seattle, which is essentially a home game for Gonzaga. I saw a team against Florida in their first SEC game this season, not knowing what to expect. Mark Pope, this honeymoon has been great, 11-2 in non-conference play. He had a stumbling block against Ohio State. Hey, Ohio State's pretty good this season, or at least good enough to, I think, make the tournament. And in their first SEC game against Florida, who was coming in 13-0, they had an unbelievable offense, unbelievable backcourt with Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, and they race out to an 11-point lead in the first half, and you're thinking, oh boy. Kentucky goes on a 16-0 run in response, and they win by 6, scoring 106 points. Lose to Georgia, come back and beat Mississippi State on the road. Lose 2 games to Alabama and Vanderbilt, come back and beat Tennessee without Lamont Butler. And then after a 2-game losing streak that could have been the beginning of the end, it could have been the start of the downfall this season, could have been the growing pains starting to emerge. They've won 2 games since then, Kentucky. And I think that Ole Miss game woke Kentucky up defensively. Mark Pope had been saying constantly that week, around that game, before and after, they were searching for answers as a staff defensively, searching for answers to figure this out. And then we heard reports that Mark Pope, came out of the locker room after the Ole Miss game with blood on his hand. And the furniture was completely destroyed in the locker room. If you don't think this doesn't mean something to Mark Pope, it does. It means a great deal. It's not just cliche. You see it in a player who played for Kentucky. He's one of their own. He's one of Big Blue Nation's own. That's what I love about Mark Pope. And ever since I started covering Kentucky, being a part of the beat, and in a way, I've become a Kentucky fan. I was accepted into Kentucky in 2016. I almost went to Kentucky. Right? I went to Cincinnati. I graduated Bearcat. Hey, Bearcats, Wildcats. There's a true story, by the way, of how the Bearcats got their name. It happened in a football game against the Kentucky Wildcats. I'll save that for another episode. Anyway, Mark Pope embodies Kentucky basketball. Yes, there's a blue blood. There's a national standard of excellence. And with that, there can be a corporate type feeling to Kentucky. It can feel like a country club because there's so many benefits and perks and exposure and national whatever hoopla and pomp and circumstance that comes with it. But Mark Pope goes beyond that. Mark Pope understands that there is grit and toughness, and it takes a community and a team to achieve what this team's goals are this season. Are they going to win the SEC regular season? Likely not. Are they going to be a top 4 seed in the tournament? There's a chance. I'd say they're going to be anywhere between 5 and 8. Now, if they beat Alabama, we'll revisit that conversation a week from this upcoming Monday. So essentially Monday, February 25th. But what this team is going to be is they're going to be a team nobody wants to play in the SEC regular season, the SEC tournament, and the NCAA tournament. Why? Because they can beat any team on any given night. They can also lose to any team on any given night. It's a matter of which Kentucky team you get. I mean, I'm listening to Matt Jones and KSR and Tom Leach and Jack Goose Gibbons after the game on Tuesday night. And they were talking about, Tennessee just got this Kentucky team that only gives up 64 points defensively. But in 2 games against Tennessee, in a span of 2 weeks, first game, no Jaxson Robinson. And what do? They shoot 12 of 24 from 3. They hold Tennessee to 73 points on their home floor. They score 78, the Wildcats. 2 weeks later, February 11th, Molly McGrath, who was calling the game with Dan Schulman and Jay Billis, she was the sideline reporter on ESPN Tuesday night, said that disappointment and embarrassment was how Zakai Ziegler felt after the game in Knoxville 2 weeks ago. And that he and Tennessee were going to do everything they could to avenge it on Tuesday night. And what does Kentucky do? Without Jaxson Robinson, and then without Lamont Butler for the last 8:40 of the game, they hold Tennessee to 64 points. They score 75, the Wildcats. So in 2 games against Tennessee, with 48 minutes and 40 seconds combined in the 2 games, without 2 of your top 3 scorers, you still score 76.5 points per game against Tennessee, the best defense in the SEC. That is really, really impressive. It's so impressive. And it goes back to Mark Pope's coaching, the offensive sets he runs. This Kentucky team is an active offensive team. They move without the ball well. They cut. They set screens. They get guys into open shot positions. That's coaching right there. That's not just talent. Talent is, can you score when Tennessee's defense is throwing their best shot at you? Yes, Kentucky can do that. But they can also get themselves open looks. Kobe Brea, Trent Noah, Ansley Almanor. That's what coaching is about. Mark Pope is doing just that. He's outcoached Rick Barnes twice already. He outcoached Todd Golden. He outcoached Buzz Williams. We've seen Mark Pope outcoach Mark Few and John Shire so far this season. That's pretty good. And it just continued Tuesday night. How resilient this team is, given the circumstances. Kentucky in this game, like after Albanor's and 1 tied the game, Tennessee gets a bucket to go up 60-58 with 4:50 to go. Tennessee gets 2 offensive rebounds. Shaz Lanier gets 1. Jemai Meshack gets 1. Right? Frustrating. You get 2 stops and Tennessee still scores, but you still got 2 stops. Like Jimmy Dykes has constantly said this when he's on Kentucky broadcasts. He always asks, does Kentucky have the chops to get stops? Chops to get stops. Good saying if you ask me. And on that possession, which was really 3-1, Kentucky did. Tennessee is just a really good offensive rebounding team. We knew that going in. Kentucky in the first game without Lamont Butler still only loses the rebound battle 41-38. It was 11-8 offensive rebounds. I can live with that. I think anyone associated with Big Blue Nation, Kentucky fans, can live with that. You just swept Tennessee. You just swept the team that went to the Elite Eight last year. And yes, this is Kentucky basketball where there are national excellence standards. I get that. But I think also Big Blue Nation is embracing the fact, and I was talking with Matt Jones about this after the game. I said to him, I'm like, how much fun is this team? Why? Because there are no expectations. There are no set expectations. It's not get to the Sweet 16. It's not get to the Final Four. No, it's let's see how good this team can be given the circumstances, given who is new on this team. You have two players, and Anthony Almanor and Amari Williams, that are in the top 9 in scoring, and they both played in the CAA last year. And now they're playing in the SEC, which, as Jay Bilas said, may be the best conference he's ever seen in college basketball. The SEC may have 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's over 20%. And if you're Kentucky with this new roster and having to assemble it almost all of it through the transfer portal, look at your score. Look at your leading scorers. Oweh, transfer. Robinson, transfer. Butler, transfer. Amari Williams, transfer. Kobe Brea, transfer. Andrew Carr, transfer. Brandon Garrison, transfer. Ansley Almanor, transfer. Kirk Carissa, transfer. Huh? And then Travis Perry and Trent Noah are freshmen doing what they're doing. It's unbelievable to me. And when you have two Kentuckians doing what they're doing, right? They're part of laying the foundation that is being laid by this entire team this season. A foundation of we're going to be tough, we're going to be gritty, we're going to be physical, we're going to recruit in state, we're going to be able to land guys in the transfer portal. I mean, did Kentuckians know a lot about the players they got before this season? I would bet you they did, because Kentuckians know their basketball. But it's not like they were landing, huge recruits. Anthony Almanor was in the 300s in the transfer portal rankings. Look what he's done this season. They don't beat Tennessee once without him, let alone twice. You see what he's been doing. You can see what guys like Amari Williams, who had a triple-double last week. You can see what guys like Kobe Brea, who led the nation in three-point shooting last year. He goes from the A-10 to the SEC. He made 7 threes against Florida. And Kentucky needed just about every single one of them. This team just plays together. In their third game of the season, they had no business beating Duke. They did. In just their 7th game together. Let me backtrack there. In just their 9th game together. Is that right? No, I'm blanking. Anyway, December. Well, they played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. So in their 8th game together, after playing Clemson and losing. Okay, Clemson's really good, by the way. Clemson's really good. And they might win the ACC regular season title. That's how good they are. And they just beat Duke. So then you go to Gonzaga. You find a way to win that game without Butler and Carissa. This team has resilience to them. Mark Pope is going to coach his behind off. That is impressive. It doesn't matter who's there. Make adjustments. I'm talking with a friend of mine. That same friend of mine who lives in Nicholasville. And he said to me this morning, he's like, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to put it past Mark Pope to make an adjustment to go in Alabama and win. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. 7 games remain. They should be Texas on Saturday, which we'll get to coming up. They should be Vanderbilt, even though they did lose to them earlier in the regular season. I do think they'll be Vanderbilt at home. I'll be at that game next Wednesday for CLNS. And I also cover Kentucky for See It Blue. But we'll have plenty of coverage for you, of course, on CLNS Media. Kentucky should beat Oklahoma on the road. So there's 3 wins right there. They should beat LSU at home. That's 4 wins. So that gets you to 10 wins, 10-8 in the SEC. And then you have 3 other games left. And this is not in chronological order, but they've got Alabama next Saturday. They got Auburn on March 1st. And then they have Missouri on March 8th. 2 of those games are on the road. 1 of them's at home. If you can win one of those games, you get to 11-7 in the SEC, and you're, a 6 seed in the SEC tournament? I take that. Would you? I would take that. I would definitely take that. A 6 seed? And here's the thing. Yes, Kentucky may have to play the 3 seed in the quarter. They would have to play the 3 seed in the quarterfinals. In this conference? I wouldn't be shocked if a team with like a 7, 8, or 9 seed wins the SEC tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if a double-digit team wins the SEC tournament. I mean, that's how good this conference is this season. And yeah, Mark Pope has outcoached some of the best coaches in this conference. Rick Barnes twice. He's outcoached Buzz Williams, Todd Golden. He has an opportunity to get revenge against Nate Oates in Alabama. He still gets to face Auburn and Bruce Pearl. Right? They're going to face Missouri, Kentucky in that last game of the regular season, and Dennis Gates, who I think has done a tremendous job with that program, especially after what happened last year, where they went 0-18. Like Kentucky, I mean, they are so overachieving this season. And I love it because I think they can still get better. Like, yes, is Butler and Robinson are probably not playing Saturday. The outlook doesn't look great. And Mark Pope, who spoke today to the media, Mark Pope said we could find some clarity on both of them in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. When he says that lets me know, okay, this is going to be a multi-week thing. So realistically, you're looking at this team not having Robinson and Butler for the next 3 games. If you can win 2, I'm not going to say I don't care what happens against Alabama. Just don't get blown out. That's all I'm asking for. First, beat Texas, which we'll get to in a minute, because I think this is going to be a wicked good game on Saturday. And then you face Vanderbilt. Mark Byington has done an excellent job in his first season with the Commodores. And then you get to Alabama. At this point, what I'm doing is, and I don't know how many of you are doing this as well, and if you are, great. But I would look at the next 4 games. At Texas versus Vanderbilt, at Alabama, at Oklahoma. Win 3 of them. Somehow win 3 of them. If you can get to March in that Auburn game, and maybe Butler comes back then, and maybe Robinson comes back then. I don't know about Kirk Carissa. I'd love if he came back because I really loved watching him play. And what sucks for all 3 of them is this is their final season of eligibility, right? That's what's so tragic about this. I shouldn't say tragic. That's the worst part about this is that this is their final season of eligibility for all 3 of them. But you may get them back. But if you get Butler and Robinson back, that much is crucial. Carissa, I mean, look, he brings an energy to this team. He's a good floor general too. I think he led the team in assists at the time he went down in December against Gonzaga. If you get all 3 of them back, okay, we can talk about how far we think this team can go in March. You get 2 of them back, you still have a chance. 1, I think you still could. Look, I think this team defensively can still be good without Lamont Butler. They just won't have an on-the-ball presence. And when you face guards like Trey Johnson and Jason Edwards and Mark Sears in your next 3 games, and then you're going to face Auburn and their bevy of guards, and then you're going to face Caleb Grill and Missouri, you're going to need some on-ball pressure. You don't have to face Chaz Lanier. You don't have to face Florida and their elite backcourt, Mississippi State or Wade Taylor IV and Texas A&M. You're not going to face any of those teams. But you are going to face it, or Ole Miss, right? But Kentucky embraced their struggles, and that's why they've won their last 2 games. If you look at it, they've won 3 out of 5, right? They weathered the storm. I mean, they're in a good spot because, yes, they have injuries, but they have momentum. And to me, it felt like it was just something that Mark Pope updated to me. And yes, it's important, but there's a lot of positive momentum within this program right now that I think they can go into Austin and beat the Longhorns on Saturday. And they should, actually. I'm not putting it past them to win any game on their schedule because I've seen them do it. And again, that's why we've raised expectations. But also remember this season isn't about that. It's about laying a foundation. It's about saying, hey, we're still going to be really good in the Mark Pope era. I think one of the interesting things that's going to be fascinating to watch this offseason is, with a full season under his belt, Mark Pope and working the transfer portal and recruiting. What kind of roster do the Wildcats have next year? Oweh can come back. Garrison can come back. I think Almanor and Williams can. I think Almanor, I believe, can come back. Don't quote me on that. But like this team is still going to be really good next year, even as players come and go. Right? We look at this Kentucky roster. Well, Almanor is a senior, but I believe he can come back. And then look at what you have with Travis Perry and Trent Noah. Those guys are not afraid to let it rip. Those guys are not afraid to let it rip from beyond the arc. Those guys are fearless. And they're not just guys who have some scattered stats in the stat sheet that you see at the bottom of it when you go to prepare for a game on opposing teams. No. They have become contributors, albeit small contributors, but you look at what they're doing, they're going to keep stuffing the stat sheet. Like, they're going to be next year, I am willing to bet, in the middle of the pack in terms of scoring and shooting. They're small contributors. They're going to have to step up for a significant period of time, potentially. So, what are you going to do if you're Mark Pope in the starting lineup? Personally, I'd go Travis Perry at point guard. I would throw him in there. Why? Because Mark Pope believes in his young guys. Right now, Travis Perry is coming on. I would go Perry, Brea, Owe, Almanor, Williams as my starting five. Kobe Brea could be your point guard too, although I'd want his shooting abilities, especially from three-point range, maximized, so I'm putting him at shooting guard. But the great thing is you have depth still. You can go 9 deep. You can bring guys like Garrison and Carr and Trent Noah and Colin Chandler off your bench. The depth is still there for this team. It really is. Guys are willing to step up and maximize and expand their roles. That's a great thing because their depth is tremendous still. And that's going to allow Mark Pope to make adjustments in-game, in between games, and adapt to who's available. I mean, it was Ansley Almanor, Kobe Brea, Trent Noah, Mari Williams, Otega Owe. 17-4, Kentucky outscores Tennessee in the last 4:21 on Tuesday. 17-4. You score 17 against the best defense in the country and you hold them to 4 points. Like, you beat Tennessee at their own game. And then some. Butler started it with that steal and score. The rest of the defense finished it. And then 3-point shooting. January 28th at Tennessee. 25 of 50 from the field. 12 of 24 from three-point range. Tuesday night in Rupp Arena. 26 of 52 from the floor. 12 of 24 from three. Carbon copy. That's how they beat Tennessee. All right. Texas on Saturday. It's not a trap game. You want to know why? Because every game in the SEC is a big game. And again, the question that I have is, can this team go into Austin on Saturday night? By the way, quick nugget. This is the first time Kentucky's going to Austin to play a true road game at Texas. You may remember, and it may be a painful memory, but you may remember in 2005 in the NCAA tournament, Kentucky played in Austin, Texas in the Elite Eight against Michigan State. And that was the game where Sparks hit that 3-point shot at the end of regulation that bounced around the rim and went in, and they spent 10 minutes or whatever at the monitor reviewing if his foot was on the line. And there's actually a great quote. During COVID, The Athletic did a series, and I believe Joe Rexrode wrote about this game. Joe Rexrode, who's based in Knoxville, who really, really talented reporter and talk show host in Nashville. And he did at least host Robbie and Rexrode on 102.5 The Game, ESPN's Nashville affiliate, ESPN Radio's Nashville affiliate. And anyway, Rexrode wrote, and it was a series the Athletic College Basketball wrote called Best NCAA Tournament Game I Ever Saw. And Rexrode wrote about the 2005 Elite Eight game between Kentucky and Michigan State. And Rexrode said, and Tom Izzo had said, that the amount of time they spend reviewing the play, he thought they should rule it a 3 because no team should lose on that kind of review. It was a 3. They went to review it. Izzo said this should just count as a 3. He really did say that. Which tells you how great of a head coach and how great of a man and good sport Tom Izzo is. And I've met Tom Izzo before. He's tremendous. I have a lot of respect for him. Anyway, so that's the last time Kentucky played in Austin. It's the first true road game against Texas in Austin for Kentucky. It's the first time these two teams have played since December 5th, 2014 at Rupp Arena. Kentucky winning 63-51. Willie Cauley-Stein, 21 points, 12 rebounds in that game. Game tied at the half. Kentucky outscored Texas 37-25 in the, or 36-20. Excuse me. It was 26 all at halftime. 37-25 was the score in the second half. Excuse me. My University of Cincinnati math didn't do me well there. Moving on. Anyway, Kentucky also played Texas in the 1993. It was called the Maui Classic Invitational at the time. You know it now as the Maui Invitational. Kentucky beat Texas 86-61. Head coach for Kentucky was, of course, Rick Pitino. Texas's head coach, Tom Penders. Kentucky won the Maui Classic Invitational that year. They beat Ohio State and Arizona after beating Texas 86-61. But this Texas team, they're 15-10. They're 4-8 in the SEC. They're coming off a 101-80 loss to Alabama Thursday. They got absolutely boat raced. But as Dan Horde, and I went to UC, so I have listened to Dan Horde a lot over the years, huge Bengals fan as well. Dan Horde has said, he said this on the broadcast of the Bearcats game last Saturday, that Saturday night environments in college basketball are crazy. And Texas is going to come out with a sense of urgency, right? The Moody Center is going to be rocking. And Mark Pope today called Texas a really well-rounded team. He added Texas has over 1 point per possession on the offensive side. And this team is solid, right? We can look at this Texas team and who they are this season. If I can pull up their stats. Here we go. Like, Texas is averaging 78.6 points per game. They have 338 assists. They're averaging 13.5 assists per game. They're also only turning the ball over 9.5 times per game. But this Texas team can shoot. They're shooting 36.7% from three. A lot of good three-point shooters. A lot of good shooters in general on this team. Trey Johnson's a freshman. Number 5 player in the class last year by 3 different outlets. He's averaging almost 20 points per game. He's also shooting 38.6% from three. Then you have Arthur Kaluma from the transfer from Kansas State. Jordan Pope, no relation to Mark Pope. This team is versatile. I mean, they have 8 players averaging at least 5 points per game. They're not a great rebounding team. That's where I think Kentucky can expose them. But still, you're going to get a Texas team that has battled all season. In the SEC, they lost by 20 at Texas A&M. Not great, but they beat them at home by 1 on January 25th. They were down by 22 at halftime. They won by, it was either at halftime or the second half, but they won by 1 point in that game. They lost to Auburn by just 5. They lost to Tennessee by just 4. They beat Oklahoma on the road. They got blown out by Florida on the road. Okay. They beat Missouri and A&M. Lost at Ole Miss by 3. Won at LSU by 31. You win by 31 on the road, you're doing something right. Lost by 8 to Arkansas. Lost by 8 to Vanderbilt, and then I said 101-80. Excuse me, it was 103-80 against Alabama. But still, you're going to have to contend with a team that is on the bubble for the or teetering on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. Right now, according to Joe Lunardi of ESPN's Bracketology, Texas, in a crazy SEC. And I know we keep saying it, but Texas right now, they are on the bubble. They're in the last 4 byes. So you better believe they're going to come out and play desperate. Right now, Joe Lunardi has 13 teams in the SEC projected to make the tournament. 13 teams. Kentucky's still a 4 seed right now playing in Seattle against Samford from the SoCon Conference. Win that, you're playing either Michigan or Yale. That could be really good. Duke is the 1 seed in that bracket. That's the East region in Newark. Florida is the 2, and the 3 is Texas Tech. I actually kind of like the draw. Not going to Seattle, though. Kentucky gets a 3 seed. You can probably get a better venue location. You don't want to go to Seattle. Next closest Western location this year is Denver. If you can go to Denver, that's a good location. You can play anywhere in the Central, like Milwaukee or not Lexington, Cleveland, Providence, even Raleigh, even like somewhere like that. But you don't want to go all the way to Seattle. Wichita, not a long trip, but that doesn't really excite a lot of, at least me. But still, you can find something to do in Wichita, right? So, man. By the way, Arkansas is the first team out in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. So he has 4 SEC teams, on the right side of the bubble. Kentucky, of course, safely in the field as a 4 seed. It's Texas' first year in the SEC, so they have struggled. But again, can the Wildcats go on the road and win on a Saturday night just days after winning a marquee game? And I think we're going to learn a lot more about this team Saturday night than we did on Tuesday night. Let me ask you this question. Are you more excited for the SEC tournament or the NCAA tournament? Both are going to be outstanding, don't get me wrong. But the SEC tournament, that's going to be like an epic 5-day battle. I mean, you're going to have multiple, and I don't just mean 2. I'm talking 4 teams maybe 5, heck 6. NCAA tournament-bound teams playing on Wednesday, the first day of the tournament. And then around 20% of the teams in the NCAA tournament are going to be from the SEC. Excuse me, which again tells you that Kentucky's doing what they're doing with a completely revamped roster and first-year head coach is really impressive. I mean, Amari Williams and Ansley Almanor were playing in the CAA last year. Now they're in the SEC and making major contributions. I mean, this team, if they beat Texas, St. John's has already lost, Michigan State's already lost, Purdue's already lost this week. Kentucky could be back in the top 10. All right, coming back Monday. Recapping Texas, refreshing where things stand in the SEC with just 3 weeks to go in the regular season, and looking ahead to Vanderbilt. Plus, on Thursday, we're going to recap Vanderbilt, which I will be at that game at Rupp Arena. Looking ahead to Saturday showdown next Saturday at Alabama. Saturday night, 8 o'clock at Texas, the Moody Center in Austin. Carl Ravitch, Jimmy Dykes on the call, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on ESPN. The UK Sports Network's coverage with Tom Leach, Jack Goose Givens, Andrew Kappas, and everybody else gets underway at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, with their pregame show at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central. This has been the Scratch Podcast, powered by CLNS Media. I'm Alex Frank, covering the Kentucky Wildcats for CLNS Media. Have a great rest of your day. Have a happy Valentine's Day. Enjoy the day with your loved ones. Please stay safe. If you are going out tomorrow night or this weekend, we want you to we want to see you. We want you to be here. We want you to keep enjoying life. We want you to keep enjoying Kentucky Wildcats basketball and the Scratch Podcast, which is powered by CLNS Media. I'm Alex Frank, covering the Kentucky Wildcats for CLNS Media. Have a great rest of your day. Have a happy Valentine's Day. Have a happy Valentine's Day weekend. And I'll be back here next Monday on President's Day with the latest Scratch Podcast, powered by CLNS Media.